We live our lives under a comforting delusion. We perceive the passage of time as a linear progression toward a guaranteed future. We trust in the silent clockwork precision of global stability. But that stability is a fragile mask, a thin layer of glass held in place by the collective restraint of a handful of individuals. We have forgotten that we exist in the era of the absolute weaponization period, where the entirety of human history can be erased in the time it takes to finish a lunch break, 45 minutes. That is the length of a standard commute. It is also the window of time required to return the planet to its primordial, radioactive state. Today, we examine the clinical, harrowing sequence of events from the first boost phase detection to the final, silent blackout of civilization. This is the timeline of the end. Welcome to Discovered. To understand the nightmare, we must first look at the silent Sentinel in our orbit. We exist under the permanent gaze of infrared satellites designed to detect the unthinkable. At what we call minute zero, the boost phase begins. Somewhere across the globe, an intercontinental ballistic missile ignites. It is a masterpiece of engineering, carrying multiple warheads, each hundreds of times more powerful than the device that leveled Hiroshima. As the missile pierces the atmosphere, infrared sensors detect a heat plume, a brilliant, white-hot signature against the cold background of the Earth. In a nanosecond, the signal is transmitted to the world's nuclear command centers. The apocalypse has just hit the launch button, and the clock is now ticking towards zero. By minute 1, the data reaches the underground bunkers of global command. The information is processed not by people, but by algorithms. There is no room for human hesitation. Strategic maps begin to pulse with life as projected impact zones are calculated. The targets are not just silos, they are the nodes of human civilization. Washington, Moscow, London, Beijing. Between minutes 3 and 4, the threat assessment begins. This is the most psychologically grueling window in human history. Generals stare at screens telling them their world has 12 minutes left to live. They must ask, is this real or a glitch? History reminds us of the 1983 Petrov incident, where the world was saved only by a single officer's doubt. But in our era of AI-driven verification, there is no room for doubt. The trajectory is absolute. At minute 5, the red phone rings. The president is presented with the nuclear football and the black book, a menu of retaliatory options with no path to peace. There is only the selection of targets, enemy silos, or the total vaporization of cities. The launch codes, known as the nuclear biscuit, are verified. In these 2 minutes, one human being decides the fate of 8 billion. It is a choice made under the crushing weight of impending annihilation. If the command is issued, the launch on warning doctrine is activated. By minute 10, the threat is undeniable. Ground-based radar confirms the missiles have exited the atmosphere and are gliding through the vacuum of space at 4 miles per second. The public remains oblivious, finishing their coffee or driving to work, unaware that the better safe than sorry era has ended. At minute 12, the counterpunch begins. From underground silos to nuclear submarines, the silent ninjas of the deep, the missiles ignite. This is mutually assured destruction in its physical form. Warheads cross paths in a lethal high-altitude dance as strategic maps go berserk. It is no longer a defense, it is a terminal frenzy of launches. Between minutes 17 and 18, the atmosphere begins to burn. The incoming warheads re-enter the atmosphere, protected by heat shields. If you are in a target city, you will see a flash that is not light, but a thermal pulse. At minute 30, the first impact occurs. Washington, D.C. disappears. The Pentagon, the White House, and the monuments of history are turned into glowing rubble in a microsecond. The explosion creates a fireball hotter than the sun. Within the primary blast radius, everything vaporizes. Buildings turn into gas, and human beings cease to exist, leaving only carbon shadows on the pavement. Beyond the center, third-degree burns occur instantly as the air becomes a shockwave that levels everything for miles. There is no shelter. From minutes 36 to 38, the fallout begins. Radioactive dust rises 40,000 feet into the sky, forming a toxic shroud that drifts with the wind. This is the slow death, the degradation of the genetic code. Millions die in the following days as their bodies fail at a cellular level. The water is poisoned, the soil is lethal, and the very act of breathing becomes a biological death sentence. By minute 45, the retaliation has reached enemy territory. The same story is repeated across the globe. Cities gone, millions dead. But the end of the 45 minutes is only the beginning of the great silence. Now comes the dreaded nuclear winter. Smoke and ash rise into the stratosphere, blocking the sun and plunging the planet into permanent twilight. Temperatures plummet, photosynthesis fails, and global famine follows, killing billions who survived the initial fire. Every digital record, every memory uploaded to the cloud, and every node of the modern age is deleted. This entire sequence, the erasure of the Holocene, requires only 45 minutes and a chain of human decisions. We have built a world where our progress is tethered to a launch button. The 1961 Tsar Bomba test proved we could create a fireball that would ignite the sky. It was 3,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. Today, strategic maps are primed for a global nuclear free-for-all. If China, Russia, and the United States empty their silos, 5 billion people would be at risk within an hour. Manners and democracy do not survive in a bunker. Life would be reduced to a desperate subterranean struggle in a world that has no sun. This is the objective danger of the nuclear era. We have turned the planet into a game of Risk played by sleep-deprived maniacs. The nuclear era has moved beyond diplomacy to the G-boom. Every near miss in history is a reminder of how close we are to the abyss. The floor is thinner than you think, and the clock is always at minute zero. Sleep well, knowing that the 45-minute commute to the underworld is always ready to depart. Cherish the ordinary day, for it is a gift that can be withdrawn by a single satellite signal. The end is not a fire in the distant future. It is a fireball 45 minutes away from your window. The end is beneath the silos and above the clouds. The end is us. If you are prepared to face the truths that the world chooses to ignore, stay with us. There are many more scientific anomalies and human-made horrors waiting to be unburied. We will continue to explore the truths hidden in the shadows of our technology and the depths of our hubris. Subscribe to discover and activate the notification bell. In a world of comfortable delusions, we provide the cold, clinical evidence of reality. Do not miss our next report, where we examine the next impossible scenario that threatens the very definition of humanity. See you in the next investigation. Remember, the red phone is always waiting to ring. The end is closer than you think.